I
Oh, we're
like that.
live.
I like that. Yes, we are live. This is Nick, that is a great idea, especially considering the fact that we're talking about doing a podcast in 2023.
This meeting is being recorded.
So I think this could be a very interesting line of thought.
Yeah,
TR
so
Talks for
a
Toronto.
new segment brought to you by Team
Mhm.
Rajpal.
So for a change, I'm the one in the office.
Well, as long as we have representation, Xerxes, it's about who's working. And so we could be working from anywhere.
Today I'm in my expressive suit.
I noticed that. I do think, I don't know what you guys think. I think it might be a good idea. So just still on this podcast topic, maybe to do a poll with our Team Rajpal community.
No, we're doing that. It's already happening. We
Oh,
are in
beautiful.
the works.
Okay, well, I love it because I'm getting excited about it. Did you guys see the details on starting a podcast and everything that I sent to you?
Mhm.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes. So
So-
on that note, this is kind of like a behind the scenes.
Step
no,
one
Yeah.
was all of us
So-
have to be in the office.
That's true. So this is TR Talks, something that we're starting new and trying out as well. This one's just gonna be a general conversation with us three, me, myself, Xerxes, and Gita. Just talking about some general questions I'll be asking them and myself, and we're just having a nice conversation about us realtors and the market as well, and the industry. So we'll start with, is real estate a growing industry? Now, what do you think, Xerxes?
I think that it is definitely a growing industry from many different aspects, no matter actually which way you look at it. Number of realtors joining the business, number of sales happening year over year. And keep in mind, guys, I'm talking trends, right? Number of people with regards to investment properties, number of first-time home buyers coming into the market each year. It's definitely a growing industry. I think as people have started looking at real estate with a bigger lens, as in not just their primary residence, but as an investment as well, it has grown significantly. And it will continue to grow. I think with the level of immigration we have coming to Toronto, plus the natural birth rate hopefully going up, it should definitely have a profound effect on real estate, especially in the GTA.
And I would just even add to that. So completely agree with you. I think it's a little, the shift, if anything, is going to be how people engage in doing real estate. Are people going to be moving, to renting more so from buying? Are their investment styles going to change? And all of that is how the industry will keep growing. Because I did have this thought the other day, and I was like, we didn't know 20 years ago that we could use a phone. First of all, use a phone to take the kind of photographs that we do, or have the kind of intelligence that there is, have an electric car, like all these things. But as I was going through that in my head, I realized, okay, at the end of the day, unless we all start living in little plastic bubbles or something, everybody needs a roof over their head.
Yeah.
So that piece is not going to change.
Yeah,
Unless
I think
we
in
become like the
terms of
Jetsons.
it's being a little more. I think everything's being a little more efficient. Now we have virtual tours, e-signing. Back in the day, you had to drive to each other's houses to get paperwork signed or scan it, things like that. Things are being a lot more efficient too. Even with lawyers nowadays, we can just do e-signing too. Back in the day, we had to go to their office to get that done. But yeah, I think it definitely is growing to be more convenient for sure.
Remember when we had to, when an offer came in and we were negotiating, we had to print it, mark it, scan it to the client.
So
Yeah.
I'll take you even further back when my father was in real estate in Toronto in the 70s. they had a weekly book that would print all of the new listings. There was nothing online, obviously. And so they would go rushing into the office and there was this little booklet and they had to go through everything just, by print, no fax, no
Yeah.
nothing. It was delivered.
I
Anyway.
remember Xerxes had a small printer in his car too.
Yeah, I did the mobile printer. That's right.
Yeah, he had that as well. So, next question. So, what is the most important thing in the real estate business? I think this is just a general question for, I guess, us realtors ourselves. For me, what the most important thing in the real estate business is definitely trust, and meeting new people, and then gaining their trust as well, having them trust me, and of course, I think that's a very important thing to the real estate business, because I think any sales business is based on trust, and you need that kind of trust to expand, to grow, and network and build your network.
I think I'd like to add to that. I mean, I think trust in any business is important.
Yeah.
But specifically in our industry, and not only specific to our industry, but I believe to be the most important thing is educating your clients with the right information.
Mhm.
It's empowering people to make their own decisions with their life savings, essentially.
Mhm.
And that, I believe, and that's why I think it's our mission statement.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is, and so I'm going to add to that, and I love how we cover everything, because it's all a part of who Team Rajpal is. But I think for me, and I know you guys know this because I'm on it all the time, it's that level of customer service where I kind of have this benchmark that if a client has reached out to us for something before we've communicated with them, I take that as that is not the highest level of customer service. And I think, to me as an individual, both for myself and from a real estate standpoint, that level of customer service is really important to me.
Yeah, I definitely say all three of these are like non-negotiables when it comes to our culture in our team, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The biggest challenge this year, I think for a lot of realtors, I think their biggest challenge this year is, of course, the pace of how the inventory and the demand was shifting dramatically, like from Q1 to now. That change, that adjustment, I think it's challenging for everybody. But I think in terms of, it separates a lot from the top realtors to the not as top realtors in terms of their efficiency and also their work ethics. So, but I think that, yeah, for me, the biggest challenge is definitely that adjustment, for sure. How the market changed, and then for everyone, it seemed like it was a stop for a lot of people. Yeah.
I'd say for me, the biggest challenge, I think the biggest challenge for me has been dealing with the negativity of real estate agents in the business, because it takes away from what our role is. And there's already a little or a lot, depending on where people are at, fear and uncertainty in the market. And so it's a challenge, and it is frustrating when I'm communicating with other agents, but there's a level of the same fear and uncertainty and that negativity. But then it's frustrating because you're like, here we are trying to uphold an industry and uphold the professionalism of an industry, but now we're having to deal with that even within. So how can we show up as an industry for our clients and be that voice of reason, or that bring in that educational piece and the guidance so that it's less unnerving for our clients? But the great news is that we don't have that within our team. So yes, so that is a challenge, I think, just from the real estate industry standpoint for me.
I think for me, it's been I think it's the idea of battling the media, because the media is constantly 3 months behind. They, quite frankly, are not in touch with reality because reality keeps changing. And then, unfortunately, they get into people's minds and create the fear mongering, as you said. And I think it relates in that sense. But it's this idea of showing clients the value of an opportunity, because in changing markets, there's always opportunity. And I think it's this is where that piece of educating the clients come in and showing them the reality versus what was 3 months ago, because that's always what the media is working on. 3 months ago's information. We as professionals in the industry are looking at lifetime information. And I think this goes across the board with regards to the media. It's they're always behind in everything that they analyze. They're always behind, and they're not looking, and they're taking one person's opinion versus the facts. And I just wish the media actually had access to the information we had access to, because it wouldn't be as doom and gloom. Now, has there been a massive change? Have people at some point, is it becoming harder? There's no doubt about that. But it's also a question of people who are getting into the market and getting out of the market. That's where home values are mattering the most. And that's where we are in touch with reality versus the media, and showing people that and educating them about it to the point where they themselves believe it. It's not what I believe, it's what the client believes. And that, to me,
Yeah.
I think has been the biggest challenge. And I think that's a constant challenge in any market.
It is a constant challenge in any market, but especially when it comes to negative news. People are, they're magnets for negative news, and it doesn't matter what that negative news is. We're talking about real estate, but it applies, and 90% of the population is going to, get attracted to anything that is negative, because negative news is way more powerful than positive. And therefore, for the media, even though they can get access, Xerxes, to up-to-date information. It's not that they can't, but they choose to put out what is going to get readership, what is going to get people engaged. And that is the power of media. And, it's like I tell you guys in our meetings sometimes, it's like, do we ever read in a newspaper, we'd like to report that 17,200 flights landed safely this week? No, they're going to talk about the one flight that did not land safely. So, but that is a very, very real, our challenges are real. And great questions, Nick.
Yeah.
Nick was not prospecting today. He was coming up with these questions.
Yeah. This one is, how has COVID-19 affected our business?
It has not.
Well, I think I meant like in some way it affected everyone. Like how the process worked, a lot of changes. Thankfully, technology was going on the good things that made it more efficient. But I mean, like open houses, things like that, a lot of communications or people fearing about showings at the very beginning, at least the stage of COVID, was very, very different to adjust to, a little difficult to adjust, because we did not know what situation was going to be. But thankfully, I think it definitely helped the industry become a little more tech savvy. Like it definitely skipped a couple of years, I think, in my opinion, and forced it to be a little more tech savvy in terms of that way.
Actually, very, very true, Nick. And so Xerxes was right as well, because you said, how did it affect the business? It didn't really affect the business, but exactly to your point, it affected how we did.
How do we do the business?
Yeah.
And I don't think, actually, if you remember, I was sitting right here. It was back in March of 2020. That is when we did our first live call. The first call that we did exactly like this. And I think probably I could count on one hand, we've missed maybe 5 where we haven't scheduled a call in. Every single week since March of 2020, And this probably, Xerxes, would be something that Nick had been thinking of since 2018. When can we do this? When can we do this? And then thanks to COVID, so it was thanks to COVID, we just, changed how we were doing things.
Yeah, it definitely pushed because, to be frankly, I think, in my opinion, the real estate industry is very slow when it comes to progressing in a more efficient way. And COVID, honestly, aside from the negativity of course, unfortunately, what happened with a lot of people, but in terms of just the business standpoint itself, it has pushed definitely the more efficiency in terms of using computers, e-signing, and things, like forcing a lot of people that aren't ready for that to use it, because that's the only option if they want to keep being in this real estate business during that time. So
for sure, even outside of real estate, I mean, just seeing how much more productive people were able to be without doing the 2-hour drive back and forth, and how larger corporations kind of opened their minds to that. But yeah, I mean, and again, as with anything, there will be good that comes out of negative circumstances, and there will be not so good. And whether it's COVID or whether it's like the current financial market, there will still be opportunities. There will be opportunities. Millionaires will be born out of this market, and others not as much. But that's just how things are.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Xerxes, or should I go to the next one?
I think you've covered it. It was more so for me, it was a question of how we did the business. I know there was that like 3, 4, 5 weeks at the beginning of COVID where things were like, what's going on? And I think that was the whole world. It wasn't just real estate. And honestly, I think in a way it affected people. Like, people had a mortgage holiday for 2 years.
Yeah. Next question: what is the hardest thing about real estate? I know a lot of our TikTok portfolio, a lot of people think real estate is an easy business. So let's tackle the harder side of things. And to say that in terms of hard, and the hardest thing about real estate is, I guess, in terms of convincing not convincing, but showing other people that it's not actually that easy.
I was just going to say, it's
very good point. Yes, 100%.
The hardest thing about real estate is showing people who are not in real estate. It's not like the TV shows where everybody thinks everything is perfect.
Yeah.
It's a challenging industry. It's a challenging job. I think when you're dealing with people's life savings, when you're dealing with high emotional stress and having to be the calming force in the transaction, so to say. And also it's developing a high level of trust in a short amount of time.
I think I would add to that too. It's only easy if you don't it's only easy if you don't work for your clients in their best interest.
I get what you mean. Yes.
If you're just there, it's only easy if you're not working for your client for the best interest. Meaning, like, if you're only there just to do the sale, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to, hey, truthfully, client, Mr. Client, I don't think it's the right time to sell. I don't think it's the right time to buy this place. That's the hardest thing. But if you are there for your client and it's the truth, I think that's what separates a good realtor and a not so good realtor.
No, you're absolutely right. I think, and I'll say something a little personal for me. Sometimes what becomes really hard for me with real estate is I'm very honest and upfront. I mean, and all of us are. But what you see is what you get. And so I find it really hard when I come across, because we come across people from all walks of life, everybody owns a home or either rents a home. So they have a roof over their heads for the most part. And if I come across people that are not who they say they are, they're disingenuous, They're not just honest and upfront. I do find it, I take it personally sometimes, which I shouldn't, but I have this great level of trust in mankind. And I find it hard when I come across people that do not give it a second thought about being disrespectful, dishonest, or any of that. So this is me being very open and vulnerable. I don't think I've ever shared this with you guys, but I find that a very hard part of the business. However, on a positive note, we are so blessed to have the most amazing clients that we do, and to deal with the kinds of people that we do, because they're simply amazing. This is, just a general comment
Yeah,
on we're dealing with people.
I think we're in a fortunate situation where we can pick and choose our clients. Meaning like we can choose who, we're in a situation where we have a structured plan on how to target our goals in terms of the years, and being able to decide to say no to a certain client if they don't match our same mindset or follow our process, because we are the professionals, and ideally we are advisors. Of course, you don't have to follow our every single um, advice, but we're there to help you in your best interest. And if you don't respect us in the same way, then we will have to respectfully decline working with you. So
Yeah, and I totally get what you're saying, Nick. You're absolutely right, because a lot, it comes, you come to a stage in your business, and not in a way that is egotistical in any way, shape, or form, because everybody that knows Team Rajpal knows that we are none of those things. However, like you said, there comes that time where we have such, strong core values. We know who we are and what we bring to the table. And so if respect being like one of those most basic things, if we know that the person across from us is not being respectful or is not who they're saying they're going to be, then yes, have there been times where we have said thank you, but no thank you. You may not be the right person to be working with Team Rajpal. Absolutely.
Mhm.
It's also sometimes hard.
What was that?
It's also sometimes hard trying to help people who don't want to help themselves.
That's true. That is, it is true. But the thing is, you can't, because we can't help somebody
No.
that is not ready to be helped, right? I
No.
mean,
No, but that's what I'm saying. It took me a long time to dig down and find out how I can help the person rather than if I can help the person.
Yeah, I would say though it's still of course I would say in terms of people wise, clients wise, or like the people I just met, it's hard for them to I guess gain the trust of us too, if we just knew, or if they had a bad experience before.
yes,
So yeah,
we do have to put in that extra for sure. If they've had a bad experience, then people are going to be a little bit more guarded, no
Yeah.
doubt.
I think the best way for us, how we deal with it, is just like Xerxes said from the beginning, educating and empowering them with knowledge in the industry. That would show them in terms of, at the end of the day, we're just giving you information. You're the one that's making the decision. Of course,
Yeah.
if you ask for us our opinion, we'll provide that. But at the end of the day, you're the one that says yes or no. You're the one that signs the paperwork. And we're not here to force anyone or anything like that. We're just here to help. And at the end of the day, if you don't even make the sale, like if you decide to not sell or decide not buy, that's fine with us either. We're not the one that is paying for it or getting the money. So I think that's what separates us from a lot of people too. We take at least we try to. 99% of the time, we try to take the emotion out of the business.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so how does the future real estate industry look to you? Like, what do you see the real estate being, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Ooh. I think that, like we talked, I think that was your first question. Is it going to, is it growing? I think that the industry itself is very much going to be relevant. It's going to be how people do things differently. So for example, you've got tools like House Sigma, and they're great apps. They're excellent apps because people can go in there, get their information. For a lot of people, they think, well, you know what? Now there's even less need for a real estate agent because now I've got access to this. And what actually happens is and I don't know in 20 years what it's going to be like. I do like to believe that the best of the best in the industry are still going to be very relevant. It might be a much smaller real estate industry, and apps and tools like House Sigma will still exist, but the insight and the expertise of a real estate team like ours it's not going to disappear, and it's going to be even more valuable to the clients that see the value in having professionals guide them through a process like as big as or as important as a real estate purchase.
Yep, I think at the end of the day, if people ask like, is realtors even going to be existing in the future? I think at the end of the day, you still need someone to open the door for you. Like you can't just buy a resale home with just seeing a virtual tour. There's a sense of, there's no feeling, there's no smell, there's no physical contact. You need someone there to look out for you and just be there as well to present the home in a good condition.
I'd actually even I'm gonna jump in, sorry Nick, but I'm just gonna jump in and say I do believe even that is probably going to be something that in the future, there's going to be an easy way for people to open the door and go and see the property. I really do believe that our value comes in many more ways than that. So that still might exist, but it's the insight and the expertise. And there's not going to be any AI or app that can provide that without exactly what you said, the actual connection,
the other senses.
Yeah.
But no, what I was going to add to that too, I mean, like at the end of the day, if someone else opens the door for you, let's say the homeowner is open the door, at the end of the day, what their goal is to sell you the house, right? There's not going to be any negativity that's going to be on the house. As a buyer agent representing you, them being there with you, they'll point out some things that typically a person that wants to sell the house to you won't point out. So I think that's
not only a person selling, potentially even a listing agent. I mean, unless they're us, because we're honest and upfront, but some listing agents may not be. And whose interest are they working in? So it's, it's really thinking about that. Xerxes, what were you saying?
At the end of the day, it's about the value you bring to the table, right? Like if you're an agent, I won't even sometimes use the word professional, but if you're an agent who's in the transaction for the transaction, you're not bringing value. And if you're an agent who truly cares about, and you're a professional who cares about what your client gets into, then at the end of the day, you're going to point out reasons not to buy a property, point out reasons why you should have representation. I mean, guys, think about it. The number of clients who we've experienced, who have been buying and selling real estate since before any of us got into the business, who still don't have, who still learn something new with every. We learn something new with every transaction. So that shows you the amount of knowledge that can be bestowed upon someone, and it comes back to that empowering piece of educating your client. When your client is the most educated client in the marketplace, they're not going to lose.
100%. And I just thought of something. When we look at the stats for real estate agents across the GTA, we've got and I think that number is higher now, but it was 64,000 and sorry, not higher, because now we've seen a lot of agents leaving the business, but 64,000. And it's always that top 1,000 that is doing 90% of the business, right? And it's not even 80-20. It's literally the top 1,000, if that, doing 80% of the business. I do believe that in the coming years, 10, 20 years, that number is going to shrink. So you're still going to have that top number. So it's not really any different. It's still a very small percentage of us doing 90% of the business. But in the future, that bottom piece is going to just drop out. So we could be looking at maybe 7,000 active agents in the real estate industry, and it's still going to be that maybe that top 500 doing most of the business. That's what I think. I don't see 50, 60,000 people continuing for the next 10, 15, 20 years in the real estate industry.
That's the other piece. I think the future of real estate, I think there's going to be much higher barriers to entry with regards to agents.
We're seeing that. We're
Yeah.
already seeing that.
No, but I think it's going to be even more elevated. And
It should
needs,
be.
it really needs to be, because I think that there are some people who don't know what they're doing, quite frankly. And that's in any industry, you always have those. But when you're dealing with this level of people's life savings and trust, I mean, the number of agents you hear, or number of people you hear saying, "Oh, I'm going to work with my cousin who's a part-timer who's done 2 transactions, and they're
Yep.
buying $2 million or even $100,000 property." It doesn't matter on the price. It matters as to what extent of what you're willing to put into your life savings into the property you want to purchase. And the number of deals we've had to help people out with after they've made a mistake, it's staggering.
I was gonna add. I think like of course, if everything goes smoothly and well, then that's where maybe the easiest part of it comes out. But when something goes wrong, that's where the experience comes in. That's where it kicks in.
Well, all boats rise on a floating tide, or so to say, right? Like everything goes up. But when you're looking at it as to what works best for you, isn't it important to actually work with someone who has the knowledge, who can guide you in the right direction?
Yep.
So-
Even on
Yeah.
clauses wise too. If
Oh my God.
like if one thing is misrepresented or said differently, it can completely throw you in a very disadvantaged situation.
Yeah.
So, having a listing agent on a professional listing agent representing your side, reviewing the documentation, protecting you as a seller, making any changes needed, or even having you a professional buyer agent, making sure that the clauses on there are written correctly to protect you, is a very important thing. So it's just not something you just copy and paste and just
Yeah, no.
put it in. We had in terms of broker records, lawyers reviewing our documentation before we submit the offer as well. So I think that's a very important thing. But that concludes our first TR talks. And you have any other questions or would like us to do another one of these, please send us the questions to info@teamrajpal.com. I think this was a very good segment today, and I'm pretty sure we'll do another one in time comes. So
was
please
great.
follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and TikTok.
Definitely
And,
TikTok.
And definitely TikTok. That's when you'll see that real estate's the
Thanks,
easy.
Kika.
That's when
the
you'll see
lighter
real estate's
side.
the easy. So
Yeah.
we'll see everyone next time. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Bye.